7 a.m. Two police cruisers blocking my driveway. Lights flashing red and blue across my workshop walls. Neighbors standing around in their robes whispering. I'm barefoot, holding a coffee mug that still has steam rising off it. And two officers have their hands near their belts like I'm some kind of threat. 40 feet behind them stands her, the HOA president, arms crossed, sunglasses glinting like she's just won something. I remember thinking, so this is how far she's willing to go. She really called the cops on me for existing. What she didn't know was that the land she thought she ruled. I had just become her new landlord. My name's Mark Holland, 54, retired Army engineer, divorced, 2 grown kids, and a man who just wanted some peace. 6 months ago, I bought a few acres on the edge of my Oak Ridge estates, planning to build a small workshop and live out my days away from the noise. The property was beautiful, old oak trees, open air, and best of all, outside the HOA boundary. I checked 3 times before signing the deed. I'd heard the horror stories, people fined for mailbox colors, kids' chalk drawings labeled graffiti. I wanted no part of that nonsense. Then came Karen Whitmore, the HOA president, mid-40s, realtor, the kind of woman who wore pastel blazers like armor and thought community standards was a divine calling. 3 weeks after I moved in, I got a letter. $2,500 fine for unapproved construction. My garage, apparently, violated their aesthetic guidelines. The thing is, my property wasn't even under their jurisdiction. I emailed them the deed, the survey, everything. I figured that'd be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, she showed up in person, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, taking pictures like she was building a criminal case. You're setting a dangerous precedent, Mr. Holland, she said. If you don't comply, we'll have no choice but to pursue legal action. I told her to leave. She didn't like that. The smirk she gave me, like she'd already decided I'd regret it, stuck with me for days. A month later, I got another letter. The fine had grown to $5 grand, plus $150 a day until compliance. I laughed out loud, then poured myself a drink. But that night, as I sat alone at my workbench, I started to feel uneasy. Something about Karen's tone, how confident she'd been, made me think she knew something I didn't. I called an old friend, Lisa Brennan, a local attorney who owed me a favor from back when I helped her mom with a drainage project. She looked into it and called me back, sounding half impressed, half furious. Mark, they quietly filed new boundary paperwork last month, pulled your land into the HOA without notice. That's illegal. I thought, fine, I'll fight this with facts. I sent the HOA a letter through Lisa's office. 2 days later, Karen retaliated. She filed a police report saying I was a trespasser on HOA property and had verbally threatened her. That's how I ended up surrounded by cops at sunrise, standing there, coffee mug in hand. I did what 20 years in the Army taught me: stay calm. I showed the officers my deed, survey, correspondence, and the county's plat map proving the HOA boundary ended 200 feet before my driveway. The older officer, Sergeant Peterson, flipped through each page carefully, radioed something in, then looked up and said, "Ma'am, this is a civil matter. This man owns this property." I swear, watching Karen's face crack, just slightly, was the most satisfying thing I'd seen in months. She huffed, muttered about abuse of power, and peeled out of there so hard the smell of burning rubber lingered after she left. But the damage was done. She'd shown her hand. This wasn't about dues or rules. It was about control. about making me bend. The next few weeks were hell. She sent inspectors to photograph my house every few days. Orange stickers appeared on my mailbox, my garage, even my truck windshield, code violations. My neighbor, Reuben, a retired machinist, caught one of her guys standing on my trash bins trying to peek over the fence. "They're bleeding you dry, brother," he said over a beer that night. "That's the game. They drag you through court till you quit." I tried ignoring her, but then I got a text from an unknown number, just a photo of my truck in a Home Depot parking lot, with the caption, "We are watching." I showed it to Lisa. She said, "That's intimidation. Install cameras. Document everything." So I did. 6 cameras, cloud storage, time-stamped logs. If she wanted war, she was going to get one with evidence. Weeks later, her HOA filed an actual lawsuit, demanding compliance and claiming my land was now under their jurisdiction. Lisa filed a counterclaim for fraud, harassment, and abuse of process. During discovery, she found something explosive. $140,000 missing from HOA funds, plus 3 foreclosed homes the HOA had seized and sold to LLCs connected to Karen herself. That's not oversight. That's organized theft. I sat there in Lisa's office staring at the spreadsheet, feeling this strange mix of disgust and adrenaline. "She's not just a control freak," I said. "She's running a racket." Lisa grinned. "Then let's treat her like one. I'm adding RICO charges. That's federal." But here's the thing. Around this time, I started to crack. My phone was blowing up with threats. The HOA board issued new fees for anyone inciting division. And even a few neighbors stopped talking to me. My daughter called from college. "Dad, Mom says you're in trouble. Are you okay?" I told her it was fine. But that night I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch, looking at the oak tree swaying in the dark, and thought maybe I should just sell the place. Get out. Maybe peace wasn't meant for me. That was the low point. Then Reuben came by with 2 beers and said, "You think giving up makes her stop? It just tells her she can do it to the next guy." He was right. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. This wasn't just about me. It was about everyone she'd bullied. I made a decision that night. If she wanted a war, I'd end it her way, legally, publicly, permanently. 2 weeks later, the bank announced foreclosure on the HOA's common property. The pool, clubhouse, the fancy stone entrance. Turns out, Karen had taken out a $1.2 million loan years back and hadn't paid in over a year. And you know what happens when an HOA loses its assets? It loses its authority. So I showed up to the auction with Lisa and a cashier's check. Karen was there too, whispering to her lawyer, trying to stop the sale. The auctioneer called the opening bid, $850,000. Silence. Then I raised my hand, $875,000. No one else bid. The gavel dropped. Sold. I became the owner of everything Karen thought she controlled. She shouted, "This is illegal. He's not even in the HOA." The auctioneer didn't even look up. "Public auction, ma'am. Anyone can bid." Her face turned the color of printer ink. The next morning, she showed up at my porch. No sunglasses, no lipstick, just fear. "Mark, please, I'll resign. I'll drop all the fines. Just don't go through with this." I set my coffee down, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "You should have thought about that before you turned this neighborhood into your ATM." She just stood there, trembling, before walking back to her car like someone heading to their own funeral. A week later, we were in court. The room was packed, neighbors, reporters, even a few TV cameras. Karen walked in with a new lawyer who looked barely out of law school. Lisa presented everything: the fraudulent annexation, The missing funds, the intimidation, the illegal fines, the fake social media accounts she used to smear me. It was devastating. Karen's lawyer tried to object, but the judge cut him off after 2 minutes. "Sit down, counselor." Then, in the middle of it, Karen stood up, shaking. "This is a vendetta. He's lying. I built this community." Her voice cracked, and before the judge could even respond, a detective from the DA's office walked in. He handed the judge a document. The judge read it, sighed, and said, "Ms. Whitmore, there's a warrant for your arrest. Please stand." You could have heard a pin drop. The detective approached calmly. "Karen Whitmore, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and perjury." The cuffs clicked shut, echoing through the courtroom like a final punctuation mark. She turned to me, mascara streaked, voice trembling. "You did this to me." I just looked at her and said quietly, "No, Karen, you did this to yourself." When they let her out, the judge cleared her throat. "This court finds Oak Ridge Estates HOA insolvent and guilty of systemic fraud. The association is hereby dissolved." One gavel strike. And just like that, the empire she built on intimidation and lies was gone. Afterward, I didn't celebrate. I just stood on the courthouse steps, deed in hand, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Quiet. Not relief, not joy, just quiet. Reporters asked how it felt to win. I told them, "It's not about winning. It's about stopping people like her from thinking they can rule over everyone else." When I got home, I stood under that old oak tree. The same wind that used to rattle its branches now sounded softer, calmer. The neighborhood was silent. No inspectors, no fines, just the sound of leaves moving in the breeze across the street. Reuben waved. He didn't have to say anything. We both knew what it meant. A week later, the HOA signs came down. I replaced them with a small wooden plaque that read, "Oak Ridge Commons, a free community." No fancy logos, no bylaws, no Karen, just neighbors, finally left alone. The next morning, I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, the same way this all began. Only, this time, there were no flashing lights, no cops, no threats, just peace. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled and meant it. A lesson learned. Power built on fear always collapses the moment someone refuses to be afraid.